you guys are out, you're trying to train other superheroes to do the work while you're away, right? Because you can't be everywhere all the time. You've given this message to over 1 million students in the country. Is your message, is it aimed at students? Is it aimed at teachers, administrators, parents? I mean, who are you trying to train to save lives?
I think it's, it's this model of like, you take the student, right? The student who might be targeted or feel hopeless, or just a random kid just going through their day. And I think there's a home and parent influence. And then there's also this educator or school employee influence, whether it's a bus driver or even a lunch monitor or teaching assistant or a coach. And then there's their peers. And those three entities kind of go around. So yeah, we talk to students. Yeah, we talk to teachers and educators and coaches and support staff, and we talk to parents. And I think it's this, all those areas overlap to fill a kid with hope and give a kid a sense of identity. And we always go back to significance and acceptance within their, environment. And we also know that, I could tell you numbers. It's actually depressing on some level. I could tell you about a young lady that I teach right now whose father killed himself when she was 5, and the mother abandoned her, and her grandmother raises her. So that area in her life where she goes home has one human being in it that is giving her significance and acceptance in the family realm. And it's not even her mom or her dad. And the hits that she took, and when we talk about trauma-informed, her father left the world, he took his own life, and her mother abandoned her. Those leave scars and leave voids and have, an impact, as we all know. You don't have to be a psychologist to know that. So we really need to depend on that school to cover some extra space, right? And we really need to make sure that that kid has some peers that they identify with and some influences as sweethearts and heroes in their life. So, each kid has their own fingerprint and their own needs and their own unique situation. And the thing is they all look the same. And that's what's really scary, is they all have the same appearance and they all interact with each other, but they all have very different stories and they all have very different strengths and weaknesses.
I think we lose track sometimes in identity politics and lose track of the individuals. And I had a boss years ago that just changed my perspective like that. He had a guy that was just real challenged to deal with, and finally just had enough after years of trying to manage this guy. And I give this to teachers all the time, and I called my boss and I said, hey man, this guy's name was Paul, and I said, hey, you gotta do something about this guy. I'm just done. And I had all the facts laid out, like why he was such a big thorn, big problem. And he said probably one of the most profound things I've ever heard. He said, Tom, I hired you to deal with the difficult ones, not the easy ones. He said, I could hire anyone to do that. And I sat there and I think I bit a hole in my lip because that's not what I wanted him to say. But he hired me as the educator, as the adult, even though the guy was older than me. And I just reframed that, and I reframed that for teachers. And that's one aspect of what we leave a school with, is what teachers' responsibility is. And then we got this whole thing for parents that we have developed, and we've given our pillows to parents and said, here's the things you got to be working on, especially your own perspective as a parent that you have no idea what the heck you're doing. But here's the areas you got to focus on when it comes to driving meaning or purpose into your kid's life, when it's helping them accept other people and understand the importance of acceptance. And then there's the peer group, which is a tough one, because they're all out there seeking these novel sensations. They're all out there looking, for a group, even though they're, hungering to be an individual. And then, there's a fourth circle that we talk about. It's the kid's own perception. I mean, when you look at you and who you are, you see yourself differently than I see you. And most kids hide that in secret and in silence. And, what's her name talks about that? Who is that?
Brene.
Brene Brown talks about, shame just growing in secrecy and silence. And if you don't leave a school or an environment or with tools or strategies, I always like to tell kids all the time, life isn't a talent contest, it's a strategy game. And I think the teachers need strategies, right? And there's great strategies already in that realm, and parents need strategies, and I'll be the first to say, there ain't many great strategies there. You just picked up what your old man did to you, or, or what he thought was the best. Now you're trying to parent the same way. Kids really have no idea how to develop with their peers. We're just talking about biology taking over. So we spend a lot of time focusing on peers, when we create sweethearts and heroes. And then, when, in the midst of trying to battle what's the mental health issues, a kid's own perception needs to be worked on. So it's very complicated stuff. I mean, you're talking about years. That's why we say it's a marathon, not a sprint.
And it is very complicated when you think about it, just how you laid it out. But then you go on to social media, where the reflection there is generally less than accurate. And now the kid's got to compete with a ghost or fakeness or some other invention. So there's the perception, and then the perception of someone else's artificial, inflated, that's what they're trying to push out to the world of, look how great my life is. And I don't think that's inaccurate.
Well, I think that we didn't even touch on this, but the whole, I say bullying has changed for the first time in human history. And I just give you one quick nugget on that, and I do an hour and a half for kids on this. For years, for thousands of human years, largely, not solely, but largely, it was me bullying you over and over again, right? For whatever reason, we can talk about those issues and why I developed that way. And but today, a single incident will cause a kid, a person, an adult, to go home and to live in this 6 inches between their ears and to really target themselves now. Think about it. How many times do you, on a positive note, go back and see how many forwards, how many likes, how many comments, how many views? Just 5 years ago, being a former professional athlete, the number one question young men would ask me, number one, hands down, what kind of car do you drive? 5 or 6 years ago. I haven't heard that in 5 or 6 years, not from one kid. And that was the number one question that young men would ask me. Today, how many followers do you have? Every kid will ask you that. You pull your phone out, I'm gonna be famous. That's what they say. And that's what they battle. And they battle it in the 6 inches between their ears. You will go back to comments and posts over and over and over again as an adult with a fully formed brain to see, and you'll do it, and you'll do it. Now, post something that's just insinuating something about a young lady, and she'll go back to it. And she'll figure out who's seen it, who hasn't seen it, and she'll drive herself crazy. We have a mom years ago wrote us a letter, and she said to Jason, thank you for saving my son from his private misery, his bedroom, where he was doing it to himself. And powerful stuff there.